Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome to my first impressions of Asterigos, Curse of the Stars. This is a title developed by Acme Game Studios and published by Tiny Build Games. This is a mixture of Dark Souls and a typical character action game like Bayonetta or Devil May Cry. Now, because this is a PC-centric channel, we like to get into the options menu, so if you just want to skip ahead and get into the gameplay, I'll leave a little timestamp right here. But anyway, this is an Unreal Engine game, so I'd like to check out the options menu. So for starters, language options. Pretty good set. The game is dubbed in English only, though, so bear that in mind. Sound, music, and voice sliders are all separate. Sound is actually sound effects, not just sound. It's kind of weird. Camera direction options, you can invert them, which is always nice to have. Sensitivity adjustable as well. You can also mess around with your HUD, in case you want it to be a little bit more immersive, which is very nice to have. You can turn things off, like objective markers, your HUD. You can toggle that on or off entirely. Controller vibration and camera shake, toggleable, which is very nice. You can change the intensity of how much the camera shakes whenever you get attacked. That's pretty good for the basic options. They kind of threw accessibility, game, and audio into the same menu, and honestly, they could do it with a few more. I'd like to see some more accessibility options for just color blindness, like just some actual options for that. That would be nice, but it doesn't have those, mysteriously. Video options. Not a whole lot of resolution options, unfortunately. A mix of 4:3, 16:9, and 16:10. It does go up higher, though, than this. It goes up to 4K, I know that for a fact. Borderless windowed, windowed, and full screen windowed mode. Always nice to have those three. V-Sync on or off. Max FPS. Game is capped at 240, which is fine. A lot of monitors actually are now supporting that, which is crazy to think about that, but it's nice that at least they're somewhat forward-thinking. Although it won't be very forward-thinking when there's the first 400 Hz monitor. In fact, I feel like that's actually out now. Subtitle options. Nice to have these. You can get them really big. Good for a big TV. And now we have graphics options. A little disappointing. Not terrible. I would like to see, when you change these, I would like to see on the far right there with all that empty space, I would like to see like a little window that shows exactly like what kind of difference you're getting when you mess around with these. Right now I'm running this on a 5800X, that's a 12-core, 24-thread processor with a 6800 XT and 64 gigabytes of RAM on an SSD. This is running, basically I can get 120 FPS, ultra quality, 1440p just fine. That's about what I expect. So at least the performance is fine enough. I was actually getting pretty good performance on my old 1070 Ti, although I will say I was getting arguably better performance on that card. That's a 5-year-old card, and yet this new AMD card is having all kinds of issues. With this game in particular, not other games that I've tested, just this one. There's a lot of hitching. When levels loaded in the background, I can tell there's like a big frame rate drop, or like if there's not a big frame rate drop, there's a big stutter. Like a micro stutter. It's really annoying, and I really hope they fix that, because this game is also coming out for the Steam Deck, and that's also an AMD platform. Could be just my card, but I don't know. Just something to be wary about. You also have, in addition to all these other options, you also have AMD FSR 2. It's sort of like a special resolution scaling setting, where you can get a lot of really nice performance out of a game without barely even scratching the visual quality to a point that it's noticeable. It'll do a lot of background work. It's very nice. AA method, you have temporal and FXAA, which is alright, I guess. At least it has one more than FXAA. FXAA looks like smearing Vaseline on the screen. I usually go without it. And then you have your resolution scaling right here. Input options, which not to be confused with control. A little disappointing on the controller end, but with the input, there's actually a neat little thing right here. You can actually have certain elements be tagged to the left stick that also are mirrored usually on the right trigger. For example, the dash is the right trigger, and you could also have that on the left stick, and you can either toggle or hold that. That's very nice, because I hate playing Dark Souls like a spider monkey, where I have to have my fingers all around the controller in a claw grip to be able to move the stick, move the camera or run and roll, and still have my fingers on the attack buttons. So this is nice. I could just tap the right trigger or the left analog stick and I'm good to go. What is disappointing though is the lack of rebindable buttons. This is a character action game, I expect that. It's really disappointing that that's not here. So yeah, that's extremely annoying. It does have keyboard and mouse control. It actually switches over instantly, which is very nice to see. Unfortunately, this is not rebindable either, and I don't like playing character action games if the default controls aren't rebindable. And there's a bunch of like skill menu stuff and stuff like that, so I would like to see some of these rebindable, but it's not, unfortunately. That's a very annoying thing. Otherwise, you have 4 presets for your controller options, and it's just, I mean, it could be better. The controls, the default with that little thing that I mentioned earlier with the tap to run is fine. So overall options menu is okay. It's passable. Let's get into a game here. Now, I'm about 6 hours into this save file, and I've put about 8 hours into the game in total. So I actually played about 2 hours of the game on a medium difficulty, realized that it was a little too easy for me, started a new save and cranked it up to the hardest, not realizing that you can actually just do that in the menu, which is nice. It's actually right around here. So yeah, you have story, adventure, and challenge, and it's exactly how you would expect it. Challenge mode is more like what you'd expect for a Dark Souls game. It's a lot harder, enemies hit a lot harder, and you have to be very, very careful. And in fact, I would actually recommend that mode if you've ever played any Souls game, because you might actually get very bored on the default difficulty for this one. Alright, welcome to Asterigos. It's a nice looking game, honestly, if the game doesn't have all this poppin' when I'm trying to show off Vista. Yeah, there's a bit of an issue right now where there's a lot of stuff popping in the background, and it's not great. Not even in the background, like right in front of me in the foreground sometimes. It's a shame too, because the artistic direction is very nice. Character models are okay. Let's actually get a better look at her. This is your main character, Hilda. You'll be playing as her. Kind of has a Disney princess look to her, almost. Right? Kind of a warrior woman thing. You have a variety of weapons you get at the start of the game, and then you can just upgrade these. We'll get into that in a bit. But yeah, you have your trinkets, your quick slot items, your abilities. Again, we'll cover that as we go. But for now, I want to talk about the aesthetics and maybe a little bit of the story until we get into a fight here. Aesthetically, it's a mix of Greek and Roman mythology. I do really like it. Like, it's not incredibly original, right? But it does at least look nice. And the combat, thankfully, is a little bit more than just, oh, it's Dark Souls, but with the Greek skin slapped on top of it. You know, a lot of games do that. You had Lords of the Fallen, you had The Surge. Oh, that's a sci-fi themed Dark Souls, but they weren't very good. At least the Surge was. Surge 1 and 2. The Lords of the Fallen was a different theme altogether. It was high fantasy. Alright, let's get into a little fight here. You notice that animation was a little stunted. The animations are actually good in this game, it's just that at a distance, it's trying to do that trick where it doesn't, like, do every frame of animation to, like, save on performance, but I'm kind of close, so it still juddered in. That was noticeable. Alright. We're actually at a place I'm fairly certain we're not supposed to be. This is, like, really far into the game, kind of. I'm supposed to be going to a pit, but I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know how to get there. So we're gonna be dicking around over here until we die, and then maybe we'll fight a boss from a previous save. So the combat system is very much like Souls, in that you have a weapon, you have a basic attack, and in this case you kind of have a mix of stuff. You could either have a heavy attack, like this. There's something wrong with the pathing in the AI in this game, I'm not quite sure. He doesn't really notice me, but believe me, there have been instances where guys have just seen me and kind of gotten stuck behind a statue trying to run towards me, or, I don't know, I'm right in front of them. It's a little weird. Part of it's due to the story, the other part of it is, it's just, like, unexplainable, like, jank. But essentially, you've got a combat system where you have your basic light attacks, and then you have a special move specific to that weapon. This is a parry that you can do with the spear. It lets you follow up with a special counter attack that does a lot of damage. You also have these special abilities at the bottom right here. On the far left, that's like this crazy... Actually, you know, I'll just show you, because I think I have enough points to really do it. So, let's see if we can actually get these guys next to each other. There, that's it. That cost 20... So, and I'm dead. 27 points. Yeah, we're really in the wrong place, but I do want to show off the combat a little bit here. When you die, it's similar to Dark Souls. It has some story significance, and you lose about 10% of your currency at the top right there. These little shards, which have impact on the story as well. When you actually get experience points, you bank those. You don't have to worry about dying and losing all your XP if you don't get your stuff back. No, don't worry about that. In fact, you can't really get anything back. You lose 10% every time regardless, which is a little bit annoying. However, you do get to keep every piece of experience point that you get, which is nice. I'd say this is a... I wouldn't quite call it a casual alternative to Dark Souls, because that's just any character action game or maybe Monster Hunter. But I will say, the game is a lot more lenient if you die. Like, you don't have to sweat it too much, although you do lose it, like, that 10%. And there's nothing you can do about that, which can get a little bit annoying. But I will say that the combat is probably one of the game's biggest strengths. This is one of those examples of a game being not amazing, not original, not super great in concept, but the execution just being better than the concept. Let's try that, and then... That's the other move that I want to show you. Didn't do a lot of damage, you'll notice, because of the scaling, because we actually... She brought out a sword and shield, and then switched to the hammer. And it actually scales, those special abilities scale with your experience points and what you put your talents into. So here's our profile once again. We have some items that we can use. We have this gem right here that we can actually change our affinity to. This actually is useful for going back to previous areas, in addition to giving you elemental damage. The disappointing thing is that the elemental damage is just that. It's just like another little buff. It's not like you can switch to, I don't know, the fire move, and then go around with your spear, then drop like little fire flames when you're doing this. No, it's a little disappointing. It's just... Enemies are sometimes weaker to this. Or this. That's arcane. You know, I think there's one more that I haven't gotten yet, but... Yeah, that's a little disappointing. But it is used for opening up older areas. So, like, you go back to a previous area, and you basically unlock a door. Like there's some vines that you need to burn off. You can use your spear to burn them off. So, that's nice. Aside from that, you also have your trinkets. These are pretty self-explanatory. These give you, like, buffs. We have, like, currently, like, a really low resistance to a bunch of stuff, so we can't really take much damage without dying pretty quick right now. You have your potions. There are your items right here. And then here are your weapons. You start out with all of these, and this is kind of the biggest complaint I had with the game at the start. I was worried that it would get a little bit repetitive, because if you're using the same weapons in something like an ARPG, the problem is that eventually you're going to level out, and you're only going to level up one, and then you're going to stick with it. And then that means you're just going to be doing this the whole game. And I'll give it credit. The weapon system in this game, at least for the spear and like the hammer, really, really fun. Like the transitions between animations, you're noticing right here, they're really good. Great iframes. It actually feels more like a Devil May Cry, a Bayonetta, or whatever, rather than a traditional Souls game. Because Souls games, or maybe you might not even want to say Souls games, like a Monster Hunter type of game, where you have big weapons, and you're like swinging them at people, and you want to be really deliberate in your attacks.
A young girl like you? Did you really get rid of the war axe? Tell us your name first, outsider thief.
Wait, I'm not a thief. Are you Avalon? I'm a warrior of Anbari's Northwind Legion, representing Minerva's adherents.
Minerva sending an outsider? Ridiculous. It'll take more than that to trick me.
Look, I have proof.
What is this nonsense? Looks like Minerva's mind has gone as off-kilter as my own. Tell me, where are you from? What magic did you use to gain her trust?
The voice acting is
Looks like
a little bit hit and miss sometimes. There it was definitely miss. I wasn't a fan of that. It seems like they were trying too hard. Earlier, it's been pretty smooth sailing for the most part. It's actually been pretty good. The story itself is mostly fine too. I'll get into that in a second. But for the most part, like, when it comes to your weapon setup, like, the kit is fun. Like, doing a little counter, and then, of course, you have the RPG elements to make it interesting. These are, like, your basic ones. Like, okay, let's increase attack. Let's increase your HP, your rate of attack. Boring, whatever stuff. But you got, like, the perk system, which gives you those abilities that I showed off earlier. And, of course, you have, like, this tech tree. So, like, if I go over here, it's like, okay, this is for the spear. Like, oh, I can extend my time frame for the counterattack. It's not just +1, it's like a little bit extra. For each successful consecutive parry with the spear, you get a stack of counterattack damage buff. Okay, the spear's last attack in your combo chain does more damage. You know, that's fun. That's alright. And then you have the more, like, bigger ones, like, ooh, look, check this out, Revenge Storm. So we check that out, like, ooh, okay. But this uses up your, like, little mana, I guess you'd call it. Now, you can actually get that back, aside from, like, you know, waiting for it to restore, like, through resting or using items. You can actually just build it up while you're doing damage. So it doesn't mean that you're gonna be like, oh, I really want to use these special moves, but I gotta wait, I gotta save them up. I mean, you should, but you can use them oftentimes in combat, and you can get them back pretty quickly as long as you're dishing out a lot of hits. And that's nice. That's very nice to have. Because in reality, the combat system is not quite... doesn't really have the depth that you're looking for. It's not like Souls where you're going to be slamming down big, giant swords on big monsters, and it's not like Bayonetta or Devil May Cry where you're building up lengthy combo meters and like you're launching people in the air and you're doing all this fun stuff. So it kind of unfortunately sits in a... there's the awkward animation again. In an awkward in-between. Almost looks like stop motion. See, now it's fine, because I got closer. Yeah, it's a little bit weird. It is impressive. I want to see how big the developer team size is, because this is actually, like, potentially like, really interesting. How they're able to get, like, a system this good. Like, because, like, the actual combat, like, of moving around and, like, ooh, shit. Ah! Jesus. It's a little bit harder. We're actually going to go to an easier area so I could just showcase, like, the combat and, like, do some of the side quests a little better. But essentially, like, I'm fine with the core, like, mechanics of the combat system in that, like, the actual controls feel buttery smooth. Everything feels spot on and fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. The main problem is that there's just not enough, and I'm worried about how that's going to carry me through the next, you know, 24 hours. This game is, I think, 30 to 40 hours long. I'm 6 hours in, and... The fact is that I've kind of already, you know, I'm like good with the spear now, and it's fun to use it, but it's just the spear. The hammer is falling behind because I don't have enough stuff to upgrade, and I want to put everything into the spear. So like, okay, I'll mix the spear and the hammer. You know, we'll make that work. But you know, what if I get bored? I haven't seen a way to redo my weapon talents and weapon upgrades. I can redo my actual skills. You know, the perks and all that. You actually even have passive perks in this game, which is cool. Like, there's enough to keep me going and not keep me bored. The environments are interesting enough. The story that's going on isn't, you know, crazy interesting, but it at least is holding my attention somewhat, because now, you know, I'm invested. I've been playing for 6 hours. It's fine. As for the story itself, let me get into that a little bit more. Again, it's a Greek-Roman mythology-inspired game. You have characters named Minerva, characters that are just, well, you know, they look like they're something out of, like, a fantasy story, or a, you know, mythology. And it's interesting. The main premise is that you are playing as a girl named Hilda. Her dad has wandered away and into this city, and, well, the idea is you have to go into the city and stop this curse. This curse is affecting everyone. Everyone has to deal with it in a certain way. And this curse has been going on for about 100 years. Let's see if we can find our way here. I want to see if we can get to that one area. It's actually nice. There's a ghetto area. That was the first area. There's the tutorial before that. There's the ghetto area. There is an area with demon beasts that I'm trying to find right now. And then there's the academy, which I showed you earlier. And then there was the one I was about to go to, which is that little village. Okay, there's one... yeah, okay, I think it's over here. So each district has, like, their own way of dealing with this curse that basically if, like, it's basically, like, the items that you get in this game to level up. People are kind of, like, addicted to it, like food, in a way. And if they don't have it, they, like, I guess they turn into monsters, from what I gather from it. Now, there's different ways that these city people have been coping with this for, like, 100 years, basically. Your dad's, like, out here with, like, some, like, group of, like, soldiers trying to deal with it. So you're trying to go find him. And you have all these people trying to, like, manipulate you, but essentially you have these different districts, and each one of them has, like, this own, like, theme going on. So the first one was like, okay, we got, like, a bunch of, like, ruffians and criminals here, and basically, if you want our protection, you gotta be our slave. You gotta give us all your valuables, all right? That's how one place dealt with it. This place over here that I'm going to is a little different. It's actually one of the nicer places aesthetically. this place has, like, werewolves and raven people and, like, all kinds of stuff like that. And the idea is, okay, we can't really deal with this curse. It's gonna turn us into monsters, so why not have it turn us into, like, these monsters that are, like, that can think for ourselves, right? So we're gonna just transform into beasts. And that'll be, and, you know, we won't have to be succumbed to this curse. We'll just have our different curse, right? Except for one problem, the bloodlust. In this area, everyone's cursed to a degree where they're actually, like, you know, craving to kill people, so that's where you end up. It's not like, oh, they're a bunch of nice furries. Like, no, they want to kill you. They want you dead, you know? So, that's nice. Go deal with that. But the area is really nice. I'd say the level design is closer to Demon Souls, where you have to, you know, pick a location and then you do everything there, and everything's kind of self-contained. You can, of course, backtrack to the hub world, but pretty much from what I've played so far, everything is its own contained area. Unlike in, say, Dark Souls, where it's all, like, one big spiderweb. Demon Souls is, like, even more disconnected, actually. But yeah, as you can see, very atmospheric, and ooh, like, look at that. What's that over there? Well, you actually do go over there. It's cool. I believe that is the Academy. There's actually a big theater. This ability, by the way, is so insane. 27 cost to it. The one that's the, so basically I'm holding R, and then I can, RB, and then I can select one of these. The B button, in this case, would be like a power buff area, and the X is like that big swinging thing that really doesn't do anything, because I haven't scaled anything. You know, that's one of the unfortunate problems when you do a game like this. It's like, okay, well, you're gonna have to grind to update your weapons. Like, okay, that's fine, but I want to use different weapons, and you're telling me, like, I gotta, like, at least in Dark Souls, you can kind of, like, move on. Like, okay, I've leveled this item up, and I'm kind of married to it, but once a better item comes along, you can pick that one up and use it. Here, you can't do that. You always have the same items, at least for now. And once you level them up, like, you're really committing to that. There's a parry. But yeah, the combat, as you can see, is, like, really smooth and fun, and it's, like, you got, like, crazy iframes. And that's why, like, it's a weird mix of, like, of just two of odd genres, because you think, like, okay, Dark Souls is a character action game, but it's not a character action game in, like, you know, with crazy combos. And this game, the controls feel like it would be like one of those games. Crazy combos, fun aerial acrobatics, and it doesn't have that. And it wouldn't make sense to have that, right? Because you don't want to absolutely, like, style on these enemies. They want the enemies to have, like, some threat to them, like they can beat you. So mixing a fast-paced character action game with a ton of combos and a Dark Souls slow-paced game that's methodical and, like, really, like, you gotta think before you do every attack. You can't combine those two. So what they did was they kind of dumbed it down so that there's no combos. You know, it makes sense. But I don't know. I don't know how this is going to hold up in another 6 hours. I like it. Like, I think it's fun. And I think it's because they got the controls down. If they didn't get the controls down, if this game wasn't executed as well as it is, if they didn't do that, oh my god, I would not be, like, even thinking of recommending you guys this game. Because so many times, like, I've played games, like character action games, Souls games, they just can't get the combat down to save their lives. At least it's fun in this one. The character action part. We're actually going to wrap it up here. I want to actually load up an area that we've been to already. At least I hope we can. At least get a nice sight in. Yes, here we go. Ooh, look at that. Damn, so yeah, we got a little closer to it, didn't we? And then, ooh, what's this? Big theater. We're gonna go fight a boss for a little bit. And then we'll wrap up the video. So overall, what do I think of the game? I think the story is okay. Like, there's nothing much I really said about it, other than just giving you the basic premise. I don't really want to spoil too much. And not that there's anything really to spoil at this point. I'm invested in it, so I'm kind of, like, willing to see it through. But it's really down to the gameplay. And I feel like the gameplay is good enough where I think I can keep playing this. Probably won't touch it for a while after I'm done making this video, as I usually, you know, that's how it works with my video schedule. Like, I feel like I've played it for double the length of time every time I do a video. on anything, but I do want to, like, okay, maybe I'll pick this up later. It's held my attention. Normally I'll play a game for a couple hours, and then like, okay, or stream it, and it's like, but no, I wanted to really play this one out, and I'm glad I did, because this is fun. The weapon mechanics are a little shallow. It could use way more going on with it. The performance is a little hit and miss. I've noticed some really bad bugs at times. That hitching problem is really annoying. Hopefully it's either on my side or they're gonna fix it immediately. Boss fights and enemy design pretty good. You know, it's no Dark Souls, for sure, but, the bosses can be fun. This one was alright. I fought one before this, too. There's actually 3 bosses I fought, and there's actually mini-bosses, too. So that's important. That's great to have. Anyway, guys, that's gonna do it for me. $34.99. It's fun. I wouldn't recommend it if it didn't have some solid mechanics and systems. Give it a shot. I would say that if you are burned out on Souls, don't get it. If you haven't played Elden Ring yet, or a lot of the Dark Souls games, maybe don't start with this one. If you're like, oh man, I could really go for another Souls game, or man, you know what? There's gonna be a dry period between like the new Elden Ring DLC. I could play another Souls game. Tide me over. Put this one on your wish list at least, man. It's fun. Yeah. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching. Once again, I'll see you next time. I'm out.